You're listening to the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters Podcast, the place where faith, music, and life intersect. We exist to help Christian indie artists and songwriters just like you get songs heard. Hey, I want to thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters Podcast. My name is Brian and I'm your host. And on today's episode, I had a conversation with my friend Russ Parrish. Now, Russ is an incredible artist, singer, songwriter, worship leader, and just an all-around great guy. And on this episode, we covered a lot of cool topics. One being what it's like to lead worship for many different denominations and the journey of that. And also Russ's perspective as an artist. When he does shows, he looks at the audience as the hero and himself as the guide. So he talks about that perspective, and it's really cool. So I hope that you enjoy this episode with my friend Russ Parrish. Hey, I'm here with my friend Russ Parrish, coming to us live from Minnesota, right, man?
That's right, man. Up in the north, Midwest.
Yeah, man. Well, that's cool. So, I've known Russ for a little while now. We were just talking before this, we have a lot of mutual friends, and man, it's just great to get to chat with you today and hear a bit of your story. So, with that in mind, where did you start in with, your music? Like what's your first recollection of, music and feeling pulled to that kind of thing?
My first recollection, there's probably an innate kind of music starting before I was even born. I was raised in a musical family. My mom was a professional pianist, and then my dad was a jingle writer, jingle producer. And so before I was even born, my mom was playing musicals, and I think she was playing for Oliver or something like that. So I had music kind of coming to me before I was even out of the womb. And then just kind of growing up, I was surrounded by it. Again, like I said, my mom was a professional pianist, so she was constantly playing. I was learning piano at age 4 or 5. Hated it. Nowadays, I wish I was going back and had learned it from more than just the 2 years that I had there. As it always is. And then my dad, being the jingle writer, is always kind of fun, hearing him play guitar and just kind of coming up with jingles here and there. And he actually changed jobs over the course of growing up there. But yeah, he's actually kind of the inspiration what got me into songwriting and playing guitar especially. He's kind of my role model for a lot of that leadership there. That's kind of where it started with music. And just over time, I grew into it, doing different bands and musicals and choirs, and church music was extremely prominent for me, especially in middle school and high school. I joined the choirs and got into different ensembles and stuff. And that's kind of the beginnings of where a lot of the music started. I was born in Nashville. We moved to Huntsville, Alabama, lived there for about 9 years, and then we moved back to Nashville, and I was basically grew up there throughout middle school, high school. That's kind of my childhood that I remember.
Man, so you're the rare Nashville native, huh?
Yeah, it's home to me. It's funny when people always ask, like, where are you from? I was like, oh, I'm from Nashville. And then they immediately kind of associate that with music, which is true. Like, that is, of course, a place where I was surrounded by music. But to me, it's more than that. It's home. I think of that as like a safe place. I think of that as family, as just my community. I don't view it as much as like the hearing music downtown everywhere. Like, I never really went downtown until I graduated college, and then I started going down just to kind of see what the music was. But yeah, that's home to me.
Man, that's cool. So you kind of grew, you were definitely set up for music, man. I mean, like you said, jingle writer, professional pianist in Music City, like you were primed and ready to go. So at what point did you kind of make the decision, as you're kind of growing, developing your songwriting, and like that you kind of wanted to pursue this thing with like your full-time, you wanted to really push into your music career. So what kind of caused that? And then take us through a bit of that journey too.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think growing up, I always was in music, but I was never, it's weird because I got into theater, I think was the big thing in 8th grade. And this is gonna be a long story. I'm sorry. Eventually we'll get there. I promise.
Man, bring it to us.
I played football in 7th and 8th grade, and I think freshman year as well. But 8th grade was kind of a turning point to me. I auditioned for a play, ended up getting the lead part, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is interesting. I hadn't really done much theater before then. And so that kind of launched this little, I'm curious about how theater and music would go together. And sure enough, and when I was my sophomore year of high school, I ended up getting the lead role in the play for high school. And that was kind of one of those, like, maybe I could do this.
Hmm.
And I always wanted to be that like rock star musician, kind of like I wanted to have the band and go on tour, and I was always a part of that. But it was funny, I found myself better at acting and theater than I was at music.
Hmm.
But it was one of those battles I always had where it's like I was good at theater, but I wanted to do music. And so I wanted to be good at music and just kind of put theater on the back burner. And sure enough, after high school, I really never did theater again, which is
Hmm.
kind of a bummer. I mean, I miss it in some days. Uh, but after that, I almost kind of put music on the wayside. It wasn't really a thing that I was pursuing at the time. When I went to college, I did communications, and that was my degree. I found that it was easier for me to talk to people, easier for me to get up in front of people. Public speaking was never a fear for me.
Hmm.
I actually like thrived off of it. I think that's kind of a theater thing that I had. Um,
Yeah, for
I got like
sure.
an adrenaline rush from just being in front of people, and it wasn't like a fear factor. It was a like, let's do this. I'm ready. Let's go. Like this is an exciting, fun time. And throughout all of this I was constantly in the church, and like I was saying earlier, church choirs and ensembles and stuff. I found myself being invested in worship leading for my youth group and all that kind of stuff. And when I was back to, I guess when I was a sophomore, I had a leader at my church. He was the youth leader for the worship band. His name was Daniel Williamson. If he checks us out, I'm gonna say hey to him.
Sweet.
He was a huge role model for me going into worship leading. I think I was just a guitar player at the time, kind of just sitting in the background playing my rhythm stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. He taught me so much about like lead parts and stuff like that. And one day he had to leave for something for the week. It was some retreat or whatever kind of vacation thing. And he was like, "Hey man, do you want to lead this week?" And I was terrified. I mean, I was
Hmm.
a sophomore in front of probably 100 kids in front of this youth group, and I was like, "All right, let's see what happens." So I led for that week, and that just kind of created a spark under me to like, I want to do this. I want to keep doing this throughout high school. I want to do this in college. I want to do this for a living if I can.
Hmm.
And it was just that's kind of what started everything. Sure enough, in my junior senior year, I started leading worship more for the youth group. I actually ended up leading it kind of the senior year. Have you heard of a girl named Frankie Baronco?
It
Or I
does
guess
sound familiar.
she goes by Frankie Orello, I think now.
Okay.
Um, she was a co-leader of mine as a worship leader at that church as well, and so we kind of led worship for our church senior year of high school and that, and then I went on and every college I went to three different colleges. I went to Mississippi State University, then to Union University, and finally I graduated at MTSU. And sure enough, everywhere I went, I was interning as a worship leader at different churches.
Huh.
And finally, when I was in MTSU, I got a full time position as the worship leader for the church. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of what all kind of led me into my path as a worship leader. I know that was a long story for that.
No, I
But
wanted to ask you about, so, there are a lot of worship leaders that will be listening to this. So what was your experience like? Because obviously you were three different schools and probably within a pretty short period of time, within 4 years, I would imagine. So what was it like? Was it a big difference, like between like the types of worship, or did it kind of find a common thread, or like how did that go for you as far as like getting in front of new people and sort of developing that relationship and that skill in a short period of time?
yeah, absolutely. I think what has really shaped me most as a worship leader is going to so many different denominations. I
Hmm.
grew up Baptist. I went to a Church of Christ high school. I joined a Methodist foundation when I was in my first year of college. And then I helped out with a lot of Catholic and non denominational churches, just different places throughout college. And I think what's been interesting to me, being a part of all of those different organizations, has helped me kind of learn what my theology is, learn what my beliefs are.
Hmm.
And that has also helped me shape kind of my comfort level, being a part of different groups wherever I am, finding ways to communicate, finding ways to play well with others. Those are different
Hmm.
leadership ways, finding the respect in different denominations. I think that's been kind of a really key point as a worship leader as I've grown through that different ways.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important because understanding the dynamic of people, I mean, with your musical background and then your unique unfear of public speaking, just being, I would imagine you're probably a really great people person. And from a talk to you, definitely true there. So like being able to be flexible to kind of understand the sociology behind the environment and kind of fitting in there. I mean, that's an amazing skill to have. And that obviously carries you through outside of music and profession as well, just in your life. I'm sure, being able to understand it, I guess, read a room would be the way to say it,
Yeah.
So that's probably served you well. So, I know you've released several songs to Spotify and streaming platforms, which we'll talk about that in more detail later. But like what caused you from worship leader guy to starting to write songs that you wanted to kind of release that maybe are more CCM focused or maybe even just more folk or whatever they are? Kind of what brought you to that point?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, this is going to take kind of some more time here.
Do it. The people want to know.
When I was at my last, when I was at my church, having just graduated college and have a full-time position there, I was seeking a way to kind of get out of Nashville. It was funny because I wasn't doing music at the time other than music for the church. I wasn't trying to do anything outside of the church. But I wasn't, what's the word? Maybe it was the opposite. Maybe I was too comfortable. It was one of those where I felt way too comfortable and I needed a place to explore, to expand, to find something new. So I put my resume out and along with my roommate at the time, and we were both just kind of climbers at the time. All we did was like our work, or I was focusing on the church, and then all of my free time was just climbing. And so we were hoping to go to like North Carolina, get just a really part-time minimum wage job and just climb for an entire year and just kind of just wing it, see what happens. Yeah. And he got an interview at the place we were looking at, and I didn't. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put my resume out to the whole country and just see what happens. And sure enough, a Lutheran church up here in Minnesota reached out. And long story short, I ended up moving up to Minnesota. And that's been just an absolute journey, just kind of seeing the differences both in the South and the Midwest. And of course, another denomination, adding Lutheran to the list, another theology and just changes and everything there. And this is where kind of the whole story starts. I know all that was kind of a prequel type thing, but after moving up here, I was starting to write a little bit more. That's when I really started writing, because I think there was this conflict, this kind of question, this unknown that I was dealing with, I was wrestling with. My theology was changing a lot. I started listening to a guy named Ray Vanderlaan. He was he looked at Christianity in a Jewish perspective, which kind of brought a very different perspective in the way that I was viewing Christianity. That kind of changed my whole world. And then after moving up here, just a few months later, I would meet my soon-to-be wife. So we got engaged, and I'm sorry, this is such a long story here. We got engaged, and the day after, I found out that I won a trip to Israel to spend 2 weeks with this guy, Ray Vanderlaan, who is a historian and teacher, as kind of a group to go study the Bible in the foreign lands. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, I think there's something bigger that I haven't tapped into yet. That was kind of a changing moment, because all of this writing from moving from Tennessee to Minnesota, and then this change in theology and these doors that were just opening, it was like God saying, like, you need to do this. Like, you should look into this. See, here's a way, now pursue it, give it all you got. Let's do this. So I went on that trip. My wife and I ended up getting married a week before we went on the trip, which was really cool. So it was kind of like a honeymoon, but not at all. The entire trip, we were walking 10 miles a day, going into like the wilderness to Hezekiah's tunnel, which is like a mile-long tunnel, just full of water. I mean, it was not an enjoyable, relaxing honeymoon. It was a training, teaching, learning trip.
Yeah.
But I came back home from that just with a fire, excited to show people, what all this was about, what I learned, and kind of do all that stuff. And so that's kind of what inspired a lot of the songwriting, a lot of the new songs that have come out in my new EP and stuff. That launched a whole avenue of, let me try writing songs for bigger deals. Let me try writing these songs that can reach beyond just my local church and more into the the church as a whole, the ways that I can reach in Spotify and iTunes and online, all these kinds of things, even to the point where I want to be able to play at bars and breweries and stuff like that, just to be able to showcase the borderline Christian music. It's like, I hear the spirituality, I hear God inside this, but it's not overly, what's the word? It's not so much to where it's like you're at a church. It's like it reaches those who have questions about Christianity, and it allows kind of that conversation to happen. And then fast forward, I'll give you this one more little short story here. I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, it's great.
In 2017, my mother-in-law was like, "Hey, you need to try out this competition." I was like, "What is this?" And so apparently it was a amateur talent contest at the Minnesota State Fair. And I was like, all right, let's see what happens. So I entered a song, and you get up there and you play your song, and people do different songs, juggling, it's whatever. It's a talent kind of thing. And I ended up getting all the way to the end, get to be on the grandstand at the state fair. And I actually ended up winning the whole thing, which was unreal. Yeah. It was one of those, what just happened? So I ended up getting a trophy. I got a year's worth of pizza, which was amazing. And then I actually got $10,000 for it too, which was a huge, it was like, it was just, this is unreal. It seems like a dream. So that kind of launched me into the career, I would say outside of church music. That's what allowed me to pursue more of the songwriter deals at, again, like I was saying, bars, restaurants, clubs, different stuff. That's what kind of pushed me to like, maybe I can do this outside of my church too. It wasn't just to do out of my church, but like there is an opportunity out there as well.
Man, that's amazing. So now I feel like I remember hearing, or you told me this in the past, but was that the same songwriting competition, or wasn't there? Did you win a John Lennon competition? Was that?
I did.
So tell a little bit about that story, because it sounds like you kind of found your path and just hit the ground running, man.
That's a funny one. So I think that was also 2017. 2017 was a big year for me, I guess. There's a lot of stuff going on. I had entered a song. My song was called I Am Yours, which is funny because I think Lauren Daigle has a song called I Am Yours. I don't know if mine came out before hers or what. But I entered it into the John Lennon contest, and I totally even forgot I did that. One day I came home from church, and I opened my phone, and there was an email, "Congratulations." I was like, what? So I started reading it, and it was like, "Congratulations, you won the grand prize in the John Lennon songwriting contest for your song, I Am Yours." And I was just blown away. Somehow I had won the grand prize in the gospel category for this. Wow. And that was another one of those moments where it was kind of like, maybe I need to keep writing. There were so many of these little things like, hey, you should write more. Hey, you should keep writing. Yeah. So that was kind of a big moment. That went on to win the Lennon Award as well, which was kind of a popular vote. Just I was making sure I was getting people to vote for me and to cheer it on and everything.
Yeah, I was gonna. This is putting you a little bit on the spot too, but you have a really cool, unique vocal. Who would you say is like some influences on your vocal style in that area?
Good question. Ed Sheeran is a big influence on mine. I love his writing style. I love how he plays. I play Castle on the Hill at a lot of my gigs. He's a big influence. Andy Grammer is also a really big influence of mine. I like his vocal pop style. And a lot of his oohs and ahs. I kind of do the same thing in my song, especially when I'm writing. And then the other two big influences of mine are like Ben Rector. Of course, which we talk about. He's got just an incredible. His melodies are just unbelievable. Like, just so perfect. Yeah. And then Need to Breathe is a huge influence on me, just personality wise, crowd participation wise. Their songs are so anthemic and just, there's just a vibe about them that just seems so much fun. And that's kind of a big thing. My favorite band is Switchfoot. I've always grown up listening to Switchfoot, just admiring John Foreman, the way that he writes, and again, the way he participates in crowds. He was kind of a role model for me when I started doing gigs outside of church. When I was doing gigs at just different restaurants, bars, coffee shops, all that stuff. He was a role model for me for that. I did a gig. I guess this was when I first started doing gigs, probably 2017, 2018. And as I started doing these gigs, I kept thinking like, what would John Foreman do? It was kind of a WWJD, but more like a WWJFD or whatever. And I would always think, like, how would he interact with crowds? How would he, talk different things and use his songs to present kind of a hope and joy and just a night to remember is kind of the thing. And I wrote this song called Washed by the Water, which is funny because Need to Breathe has a song called Washed by the Water.
Oh, yeah, I love that song.
It's so good. Yeah. So I wrote a song called Washed by the Water with a friend of mine named Topher King. He's kind of my drummer. We started playing the song at gigs and stuff. And one day I was just kind of like, you know what? Again, what would John Foreman do? I was like, how do I make this night super memorable? And I think I was this is so bad, because I think I was kind of jealous at somebody, feeling like they stole like the spotlight. And I was like, how can I one up them? Which is terrible. Never compare yourself. So I just thought, like, what would a role model do? And next thing I knew, I unplugged my guitar, got away from my mic, jumped up on a table, and started singing the song. And it was crazy because it was so funny because, like, the place went silent and just stared at me. And I was like, all right, y'all, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to sing this line, and you sing this line back to me. And I started doing it, and they learned the line. Next thing you know, we were all singing the song in this crowded room. Wow. And it was kind of cool. I did that a few more times, and next thing I knew, I was the guy that was known to jump on tables at gigs and stuff.
The table singer, man. I remember we were at a Need to Breathe show one time, and they did something like that where it was House of Blues, and I don't remember what song it was, but like they went fully unplugged, but like their vocals are so powerful that like they were still somehow filling that room, and it was completely unplugged from this, and there's 2,000 people in there.
Yeah.
So like I can only imagine what it was like for you. It's like this special kind of moment where like you said, man, memorable, doing things that kind of stand out and stick with people. The music is awesome and all that, but like doing those little special moments is what kind of keeps people along for the journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what makes it. And it was funny because I've actually had people come to the gig being like, hey, are you going to jump on a table this time?
Hey, table guy.
Yeah. It's like you're saying, like, it's it's about making those moments. Like, that's what really, when you can connect with the people, that's what it's all about. You're writing these songs, you're creating this music. But when you perform at these gigs, it's about them. It's about the people. It's about how do you connect with them? How do they leave feeling like this was a moment, this was special, this is something that impacted me, inspired me, motivated me. I feel like I've met so many writers that it almost feels like it's about them. They want to write the music that people look to them for, that like, wow, you're such a good musician. Wow, you're a great writer. And that's good. I mean, I think there's an aspiration for that. You do want to be a good writer, but I always try to remember every gig I do, this is for the people. It's not for me. I want to be able to make this a moment for them. I want to make it special for them.
And that's awesome. And it reminds me of like, man, I can't quote who wrote it, but it's like the idea of the hero and the guide, like you're in a lot of times, honestly, like the artist role is they kind of look at the hero as themselves as the hero, like, hey, look at me, like I'm the best. And like, you have to have a certain level of confidence to believe people actually want to come see you. So there is that.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying. Like your role is to sort of guide them along their journey, and your songs or performance or whatever is a part of that. But ultimately, like, we all have our own stories. So as you guys intersect, and when you're doing these live shows or recording, I'm sure you're thinking about the same thing. Like you're the guide and they're the hero. And that's huge, man. Yeah. That's a really cool perspective. I love that. So, you kind of covered it there. And if you want to leave that there, that's totally cool. But like, what would you say, like pre 2017, before all the pizza and all and all the contests and all the stuff just started happening, what would you tell yourself, like, as you're getting started, anything that held you back or anything you feel like you could have done better? I mean, no regrets, but what would you tell your younger self?
I'd probably give myself the same advice I give myself today, which is really interesting. It's learn from your failures. And I wouldn't even call them failures. Let the criticism and what you would consider your losses be opportunities to learn from. Never take them to heart personally, and always look at them as a step forward, as a way to improve, a way to get better, a way to connect in different ways. That kind of ties in with the whole crowd deal. It's like, especially when I start thinking I'm doing this for them, I'm doing this for an audience, for the people or something like that, it takes away any kind of pride I have in myself. If two people, it's the difference between 200 versus 2 people show up to your show, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing it for them. Because if I'm hurt that I'm expecting 100 people to show up and only 10 show up, then that's my own self's pride, feeling like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm not good, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm excited that I get to do it for 10 people and that they're going to leave talking about how this was an awesome experience, an awesome night, and tell their friends, then the next time it could be 100. I got to constantly keep it in perspective that it's for the people. And that goes to contests as well. That was kind of one of those things where it's like, just because I've won 2 contests like that, I've also lost another 20. You only see the successes. You never hear about the failures. But that's because I want to be able to go from those failures and learn from them. I want to take the criticism that people have said, hey, if you do this next time in your song or try to do this, then I'll learn how to write a better song next time. I can say my songs have improved tremendously over the last 4 years just because I've taken the advice of those who said, this is where you need to work on and improve. And I've taken that advice to heart. And along with that would be keep writing, never let it stop you. I have these lulls where I've had 6 months of just no writing. And I find that that's where I feel kind of, there's almost like an underlying depression with it. You know, it's like, I feel obligated to write. And when I don't, it just kind of, it feels like it puts me in a dark spot. And so the more you write, even if it's bad, things are being created. You've got to get the bad stuff out in order to let the good stuff happen.
Have you seen, you probably have watched the Ed Sheeran, the
That's
songwriter?
what I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Totally
what I'm
true.
thinking of when you're saying that. Cause that was a big takeaway for me from that movie. It's like, cause I mean, obviously the dude knows how to write and do all the things, you know? So like, it makes a lot of sense. You know, it's a refinement process, and the more you do it, the better you get. And you have to get the bad ones out of the way. Not bad, you know, but you got to get them out of the way to get to the better ones, and it's worth it. You just have to keep going.
Yeah. And along with that is writing with other people. Because I find that the more, when I'm writing on my own, I'm writing the same song over and over again. Yeah. But when I find other people to write with, it changes the way I write, and I'm sure it changes the way other people write too. You can find something amazing when you get more people involved.
Yeah, and you know, on that note of collaboration, kind of want to bring people into like how to connect with you. But on that, like our friend Chris Clayton, you just worked with on your new EP. So you want to talk a little bit about the EP and then where people can find that too?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Chris Clayton did a number on that thing. It sounds so good. My new EP, The Stray, it's got 3 songs together, a song called Hurricane and a song called By the Willow. And they all just kind of talk about different aspects of life, loss, and love. Yeah, that's on Spotify, iTunes. I got social media, Instagram, Facebook. Check out Russ Parrish Music. And that's where you can find a lot of my stuff, whether it be little new snippets of songs I'm writing or new material coming out. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I'll definitely link that up in the show notes too. And you know, one thing I like to do just to close out is just pray for you. Just pray over your journey. So let me do that. God, thank you so much for Russ. Thank you so much for the time we got to share together today, just hearing his journey. And you're so evident through the entire process of him just being willing to go with your flow. And it's just amazing to see how you just have given him these big opportunities and him just accept that with grace. And then the whole spirit of serving an audience, not serving himself. I mean, that's so Jesus, that's so humble hearted, you know, and that's why I feel he just has a special path in front of him, Lord. And I just pray that he continues to have that spirit and continues to bring him into new spheres of influence and to continue to inspire these amazing songs that can reach people in dark places and in places of light, Lord. Just that this music just flows from him, God, and wherever he goes, your spirit of humility is with him, God. We just thank you for us, and we just pray that he has a great journey ahead. In your name we pray, amen. We want to help reach as many Christian indie artists and songwriters as possible, and one way we can do that is with your help. So if you could take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes, that would be so appreciated. This is how the iTunes algorithm will push this content out to more and more Christian indie artists and songwriters. So like I said, if you could just take a couple seconds, leave us a review, that would be so awesome, means so much to us, and we would really appreciate it.